Boom! What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Kenny Parker Show. We do this every Tuesday and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What's good, my people? Spook Realm 4Q, you are, as usual, first in the building. PSA, if you ain't a jive turkey, and I hope you're not, then purchase the Epic True Story. My brother's name is Kenny. Yes, the link is in the description below. Then assault the like button. Some of you guys still have not hit that like button. We need that for the algorithm. And last but never least, big up to the Rewind crew who's going to check this out later on. Um, let's see, make it a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. I saw an interesting comment, which is going to make me fall behind, but here I go. Gregory Netta says, yo, Kenny, what do you miss more about the 1980s and 90s? Word up, son. What I miss about the 80s, obviously, is the music. And more, I'm talking all genres of music, but mostly R&B. I was chilling with my friend on Sunday named Daryl, and I was at his crib and we was watching the Luther Vandross documentary. I hope you guys have seen that. It's called Never Too Much. They go through Luther's whole story, everything, stuff you did not know. And there was a clip. Not only is Luther probably the greatest voice of all time, male singing voice, but there was a clip of Luther Vandross on stage with Dionne Warwick, Stevie Wonder, and Whitney Houston, all four of them on stage singing. And I thought about that, just watching that and thinking, what an immortal lineup. And I'm thinking about these VMAs that just passed the other day, a couple days ago, and I'm just thinking, yo, the 80s musically was the peak. There was a lot of peaks, but if you ask me what I miss mostly about the 80s, it has to be the music. Um, just immortal, iconic artists were just coming out every year. Rock, pop, hip hop, R&B, dance hall. It was crazy. Um, the 90s, what do I miss about the 90s? I don't know. I don't really miss. I was on tour practically the whole of the 90s. The clubs used to be really dope in the 90s. There were clubs that everybody went to. I mean, I'm not in the mix, in the loop with these youngsters now, but you don't hear about clubs that like everybody was at this club in New York and who's who was there and like you had to be there or you missed it. I missed the nightlife. The 90s nightlife was off the hook. That's a great question. There's probably more things I miss, but um the music, man. Roz Mel, what up? Henry Cedillo, what up? Rod Justice, what up? James Brown, Buffalo, New York, what up? Tracy, hey, DJ KP, hey, Tracy, what's good? Um, Brunswick, what up? DJ Q Storm, what's good? Rasul Hassan, what's up? Um, says, what's up, DJ Kenny Parker, aka DJ Deep Crates? I don't have the crates like I used to, but my record collection used to be pretty nice back in the day. Um, Terrence Hill, what up? Of course. G Doyle in the building, big up. Sydney Rhodes, MMA Crossfire, Jack Swagger, what's up? John Walker, checking in on a live 114. Boy, we have been here for a minute. I just got an alert a couple weeks back on YouTube. Says, congratulations on your third year on YouTube. It's been 3 years, y'all. Crazy. MMA says I enjoyed the Apple event earlier today. I was out and about and didn't get a chance to check it out, but I do think I want to cop that Ultra 3. Terrell McMillan, what's good? Um, Joey Joe, what's up? Dave Alston, what's up? Patrick Sargent, what's up? Dan Marasuti. See a lot of the regulars. Um, Sweet Goldilocks, what's up? Beyond the Matrix is in the building. Derek Mallory, I always see the salute from Minneapolis. Minneapolis! I'm a huge Prince fan, so I just had to let that out. Brunswick, what's up? I haven't seen this name in a while. Ice Cold Beverage. Where you been? Um, Gregory Netta said the TV shows in the 80s was the best. Yeah. Television in the 80s was amazing as well. Um, yeah. Those lineups when you came in the house 8 o'clock from 8 to 10, 8 to 11 was just classic lineups on the three networks, all just classic. But when it was only three networks, and so there probably was like 30 shows on television, um, as opposed to hundreds now. And so you got to imagine only the cream of the crop got on that green lighted to be on television. Um, Imagine right now if they just said out of the hundreds of shows and just mess that's on TV, if you had to just pick 20 shows, 25 shows, that's it. And that's it. You couldn't watch anything else. It would really tighten up and it would make people step their game up too. Yeah, TV in the 80s was real nice. Beyond the Matrix, what's up? Ilroy, what's up? Come down, Kenny Parker. Kenneth Smith, what's up? Uh, Brunswick says 90s was the best. Um, like I said, for me, the 90s was great because I was in a hot rap group. Um, we toured nonstop for 10 years straight. Um, the whole of the 90s. And that was great. Shows were were just amazing. Traveling sucked, but the shows were great. But I don't know what I missed from the 90s. Like the NBA was dope. The NBA was dope. The Yankees in New York, the Yankees were on fire. I don't know if I missed it. That's so much more like we had that time and it's gone and I enjoyed it. It's not so much I miss it. It's just that I could say we had it and I enjoyed it. But the 80s to me, musically, man. Jack Swagger said Whitney was dope. She was beyond dope. Even pop music was dope. Yeah. Hall and Oates, uh, Bruce Springsteen, Phil Collins, Culture Club, just dope groups making dope songs. Wham, George Michael's, ridiculous music. Ridiculous music. I think for the 80s, um, musically is the best. Carrie Vine says you need therapy if you miss the 80s. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. You come on, you cut the radio on, and back to back, you can get Michael Jackson, Prince, Luther, Whitney, Anita Baker, Lionel Richie, Run DMC, back to back to back to back to back. That era was just incredible. I mean, SOS Band and, you know, Janet Jackson, Madonna, all of it in a row. I might need therapy because I really the 80s was dope. Jack Swagger says 90s nightlife was wild. It was wild. But you know what it seemed like in New York, I'm talking about New York. The 80s was just so dangerous to go to clubs. And there was just brawls and fights all the time in hip hop clubs. But by the 90s, I feel like a lot of the people who did a lot of the crimes and stuff, a lot of them got sorted out one way or the other. I think security stepped their game up and they finally figured out how to do a hip hop night or a hip hop concert. So by the 90s, it was still rough, but it was a lot better than the 80s. And then you started being able to enjoy yourself. And then, that's when the VIP rooms and the bottle popping and all that stuff came out heavy. Um, yeah, 90s nightlife was wild, and I got all of it. Big Bat said, "What up, KP? Did you have any other college basketball offers? Any you regret not taking?" I can answer that, but it's better off I go into great detail in the book about that. Um, I don't even want to answer that because it'll give away some of the book. So, but there's an answer to that question, Big Bat, for sure. Uh, David also says, Kenny, they say this band called the Winston. Yeah, the Winston Brothers. One of the most sampled hip hop. Sadly, they never got paid for it. Yeah. Amen, brother. No, it's the Winstons, right? It's the Winstons. And the song is Amen, brother. I think shout out to Breakbeat Lou, who I've been fronting on this channel. Breakbeat Lou, I'm so sorry. Please come on the channel and let's talk. Ah man, I gotta find Breakbeat Lou's number. Breakbeat Lou, I believe, put the Amen Brother break on one of the Ultimate Beats and Breaks. And I believe that Dr. Dre, I don't know if he's the first to crack it off with Straight Outta Compton, but he was one of the first people to go big with it. I think Salt and Pepper might have used that drum break too early. And then a bunch of people sampled it. And then it drum and bass? Is it drum and bass? That became the foundation for drum and bass. Just a little break beat from I think that was like an obscure record. It probably wasn't even a hit. Um, Made millions for people. And sadly, they never got paid. I don't even think anybody even cleared those kind of records. Those kind of breakbeat records, I think, became like public domain. Just anybody could just take it and rock out. Whole genres were created off of the Winston brother, the Winston's Amen brother. I have that 45 too, by the way. Sydney Rose says that Luther doc is on point. Yeah, I'm a huge Luther Vandross fan. And I've seen quite a few things on him, but this one, never too much. They really took their time and did their homework. It's really, really dope. Let's see. Danelle the Don Freeman, what's up? Rid, what's up? Large up KP, yes. Patrick Sargent says, concerts nowadays don't excite me as much as much. Same old, same old. Yeah. Well, are you talking concerts in general or hip hop concerts? Hip hop concerts are so bad that they're unwatchable. There were bad concerts back in the day too, but now it's just they don't even try. But you gotta understand, a lot of these people are not really artists and they don't come up. Back in the day, you had to come up through a system to get a record deal and to get uh heard. And a lot of times it came from a lot of live performing, getting your craft right so someone can see you and offer you a record deal. So a lot of the artists that we saw back in the day had been on stage for years practicing. So by the time we saw them, they were seasoned professionals. These kids now, they be one day they don't have nothing to do with music. They played around with a drum machine or some auto tune and caught a hot record, and next thing you know, somebody throws them out there on stage. They only been doing this for 6 months. They don't even know what to do. They don't even know how to hold a microphone right. Um, and there's no one teaching them. I mean, back in the day, Motown had like the school where they made, uh, the Jackson Fives and Spinners and Temptations and all of these groups had whole rehearsals and steps and choreography. There's none of that now. I don't even think these dudes practice. They just show up drunk and high, rhyme over the vocals, get their money and leave. Terrible. Terrible. I think people should be getting their money back with some of these shows that I've seen. Patrick Wise says so much music in the 80s. We were drowning in lyrics from rap, soft rock, dancehall, R&B, house, yes, go-go, and some jazz. Those were musical taste backs. Yeah, we couldn't, I mean, there was so much music. Just cut the radio on. You didn't have to search for anything, just cut the radio on. And all this classic stuff was coming on. JT says, congrats on your 3 years, KP. Thank you so much, man. Yes. Anathema. Big up. Divine Existence says, peace, KP. Doesn't feel like 3 years already. It really doesn't. Time flies. We were coming out of the pandemic. Yeah, 3 years ago was 2022. Yeah, we were just things were really getting back in swing. Yeah. Um, can't believe it's been 3 years. And I got so much more stuff I want to do. Uh, Dartmouth says, what can you say about the most eclectic MC, Cool Keith? That's the homie. Last time I saw Cool Keith was about 2.5 years ago. We chopped it up, took some pics. Um, I've never had a chance to chill with Cool Keith. I've never hung out with Cool Keith. I used to see him in the club. There used to be a club called Sensations in Newark, New Jersey. I used to go there in the late 80s, and I used to see Cool Keith there all the time. And we would just, in passing say, what's up? I know like BDP and Ultra back in the Scotland Rock days were really, really tight. Um, I never really had a chance to chill with Cool Keith and really chop it up with him. I just see him from time to time. But it's all love with everybody from Ultra. Uh, and he might be the most eclectic MC. Spook Realm says Three's Company, great show. These shows were number one. And back then, shares were like, a share of the audience. People were getting like a 52 share, a 60 share. Crazy. 60% of the viewing audience is watching one thing. That's like tens of millions of people. I remember when How to Become a Millionaire um became a hit. And I remember Kathy Lee and Regis was talking about it, and it was like it got a 26 share, which even at that time, TV was already starting to get saturated, and a 26 share was a big deal at that point. How to Become a Millionaire was a 26 share, a gigantic show. And imagine shows like Three's Company was like a 56 share. And of course, Roots got like a 80 share, like the biggest ever. 80% of America was watching Roots at one time. We talked about it on this channel, but yeah, there were shows that were just, and I've mentioned that I got a chance to meet John Ritter, aka Jack Tripper, which was a highlight for me. Um, Jamil Lott said, did you hear the new Public Enemy album? No, I have not. Corey Vine says we had 6 channels, 3 majors. Yeah, we had 3 major channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, and then you had the affiliates channel in New York with Channel 5, Channel 9, and Channel 11. Before it was Fox, called Fox. I guess it was Fox 5, but it wasn't like the Fox network. And WOR9 and WPIX 11. And we had PBS. I think Trump just ended PBS after all these years. Crazy. Uh, do y'all remember a time? I'm old enough to remember when when stations would go off at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they would sign off and you would just get like a either hissing or like beep, there's something that goes beep and just be on the screen. They would go off the air for like 3 hours. They would come back at like 6 a.m. They'd be off from like 3 to 6. They had nothing to show. Is anybody old enough to remember that? The TV stations being off the air. Crazy. Could you imagine having a television channel, and at 3, 4 a.m., we have nothing to show? We're just going to cut it off. Nuts. TV has come a long way. Um, uh, Crusher Blackwell says, did you see the We Sound Crazy podcast interviews with the Brat? No. I don't think she gets much deserved props as she should, being that she's the first solo female to go platinum and her flowers. You're right. I think that Functified album was the first solo female album to go platinum. I believe Light was the first solo female to go gold. And I think Salt and Pepper was the first group to go platinum certified. Big up to Brat. I've never met the Biara, but she had a moment where she was killing it. Um, no, I didn't see it though. I love watching people's interviews. I love watching behind the scenes, like how people made their hits. And that's why whenever I have guests on this channel, I always try to ask them about songs and how did they make it and what was going on at the time. Carrie Vaughn says SOS band, yeah, huge. Beyond the Matrix has a lot of great Euro classics from back in the 80s. Yes, in R&B and pop, especially in the early 80s. They were saying that was like the second uh, European invasion, the second UK invasion or something was in the early 80s. Uh, Brand Yakubian says, Kenny, did any of the negative experiences of your childhood taint your nostalgia of the 70s or early 80s? The book is great. People should read it. Thank you so much for purchasing the book. I really appreciate that. Um, no, I'm actually very nostalgic. And it's funny because my brother, Chris, KRS, for those that don't know, he's not nostalgic at all. He is on to the next thing. I am extremely nostalgic. And even with all the stuff that happened in my childhood, I'm not going to give it away. Um, I still will be places and pass by places and get a nostalgic feeling. Um, no, not at all. I had a lot of fun. Oddly enough, with all that was going on in my life, I had a lot of fun in the 70s and 80s as a kid in New York. Uh, let's see. KP, after seeing the Kwame interview on Sway, I think you should get Kwame as a guest. What do you think? That'd be great. I have no contact information on Kwame, and I don't know him, never met him, but that'd be great. MK Ultra says, still waiting on that KRS Springsteen collab. Yes, I mentioned on this channel that when we were growing up, KRS, one of his favorite pop songs was Bruce Springsteen. Everybody Has a Hungry Heart. He used to like that song when we were kids. He used to like Devo too. I'm just airing Chris out right now. He used to like Devo, whip it good. Du-du-du-du-du. Crack that whip. Y'all remember that? Everybody remembers that song. Dudes had flower pots on their head. In the 80s, you really had to do something outlandish. Those videos were outlandish. They weren't that expensive, but dudes would have a video, you'll be singing, and like a guy with a top hat and a tuxedo will walk past, and then a goat will be over there, and then like some little kids will be chopping wood or something, and then like just weird things would just be going on in the videos, and somebody had a cowboy hat on for no reason. It was just wild, man. The creativity with not a lot of money made it exciting. I wonder if Chris ever met Bruce Springsteen. Jeffrey Lawsuit says, I was involved in a 200 plus bar fight. That's crazy. And your last name is Lawsuit? Did it come after that fight? That's a brawl. That's not a fight. That's a brawl. 200 plus. Was it 100 against 100? Or was it just a free for all? Just anybody swinging on anybody? That's crazy. I've seen a lot of brawls. I've never been involved in something like that, but Carrie Vine says 80s was the last civil rights era. Yeah, because the people from the 60s who did most of the fighting in the civil rights era, the grown-ups from the 60s, in the 80s, they were still in their 30s, they were still vibrant. So they still had some of the energy. And then after that, our generation, I guess we came up feeling real good because we just didn't carry the ball at all. Um, that's neither here nor there. I'm not even gonna go there today, but I could. Red says 90s was the best time in hip hop. It was. Jeffrey Lawson says the whole bar was fighting. I am a special DJ and the staff ushered me to safety. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I've seen some wild fights in the Latin Quarter and the tunnel. Beyond the Matrix says NYC was wilding in the 80s. Yes, NYC in the 80s was off the. I don't even understand why. Well, I know why. I mean, it's the first time dudes really was outside like that. Hip hop was new, and dudes was really outside for real. And Brooklyn figured out that there were outside parties outside of Brooklyn, like you can go to Manhattan. Once Brooklyn went to the party, it was over, man. It was over. Anybody out there been to a good 80s, 90s party and Brooklyn did not show up? Can you tell me how the party was minus Brooklyn? In New York. A New York City party in like the Bronx or Queens without Brooklyn. How was it? Gregory Netter says 90s was the last great decades. Well, it was right before uh, the computers, social media and the internet and privacy. They say our generation is the last generation that will ever have privacy, and it's true. Um, Privacy is gone. We were the last generation that can do something and actually be unknown. We were the last generation to say something was on the low. There's no more on the low. Everything is out there. JT, what's up? Jack Swagger says the amen break. Yeah. Um, Joey Joe says, Kenny, you're talking about when the music industry was ran by people who liked the music, not corporate hedge fund managers and didn't look at social media likes. Yeah. I mean, no, there was a lot of vultures and horrible, horrible, horrible people in the 80s in the music business as well. The dudes from the 90s learned from the masters of the 70s and 80s with a master. They were the master class in jerking. The dudes in the 90s are their students. I'm not gonna rant today. But yes, in the midst of that, real musicians and real people who actually went out into clubs and bars searching for acts with talent, because back then you can find an act with talent and develop them. There's no more development. You have to come already with a hit record in your hand or you're not getting signed. No one's looking for a talent. This person's a talent. They don't have a hit, they have anything, but I see talent in them. I'm going to take them and work with them. Nobody's working with anybody. You either come with it right now, you either have a million likes, social media followers already, or that's it. And you're right about that. Uh, Patrick Wise says KRS should have done something with Billy Joel. Did Billy Joel ever approach KRS about everybody's talking about the Juice Crew funny, but they're still telling lies to me? I don't think so. I probably would have heard about that. I don't think so. But you know what's amazing? You'd be amazed to find out who was listening, who is listening to hip hop, and who knows your stuff. Like, um, it, you'd be very surprised who's listening. And the people we've seen in places with somebody like, I know who you are, KRS BDP, and oh, I know a couple of your songs or whatever. And usually they would say, we like what you stand for. That was a big thing when we met people. They liked what BDP stood for. Jeffrey Lawson said, I found the 45 in the wild. It's mint. Yeah, I found the 45 of the Amen break in the wild too. I think I paid like $2 for it. Not a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. Um, Yeah, Patrick Y. Amen, brother. I desire. That was my song too. Salt from the pepper, and my name is Cher from Queens, New York, not Delaware. She did Delaware. Yeah, I desire was dope. Shout out to Salt and Pepper. Um, I met Salt once, never met Pepper, never met Spinderella. I'm gonna tell y'all a story about how I met Salt. It's kind of an epic fail. Should I save it for an epic fail? I'm gonna tell it now real quick. Maybe I'll tell it again as an epic fail. Um, Salt used to have a party, a pool hall party in like 93 in New York. She had a spot, it was like a pool hall, and it was her spot, and everybody used to go there. And I came in there one day with a bunch of dudes. It was like six of us, and they let us in. We was pushing it. Sorry, Salt, for coming to your place that deep. It's like six of my dudes. We was in there. Um, Biggie was there. Uh, and it's funny because Party and Bullshit was out. And I thought Party and Bullshit was all right. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was like, oh my God. I thought it was cool. And Biggie was there. And he came up to me, yo, what's good? What's good? Because that was my man. What's good? How you do? Good, good. And he went back to his Brooklyn crew. Everything's cool. And my man Jetta was with me, and he said, yo, I like that dude. That dude is nice. He's gonna be dope. And I was like, Big, you think so? I was like, Biggie, he's cool. He's like, nah, that dude is nice. That's the dude that said, I got the deuce deuce in my bubble goose, something something lounge in black. Like he knew the whole line. I got the deuce deuce in my bubble goose, something something. He's like, yo, that dude is gonna be dope. Remember, I told you, KP. And I was like, and I like Big. So I was like, I hope he is nice. But I thought Party and Bullshit was okay. So my man Jetta put me up on Big. Not put me up, but told me to watch him. He was there. You remember the Ghetto Girls? There was a crew called it was the Ghetto Boys. And then these girls came out called the Ghetto Girls. They even had a little person with them, a little girl with them. The Ghetto Girls, they was there. There was a bunch of rappers. Anyway, I was in there and I saw Nikki D. Shout out to Nikki D, the first lady of Def Jam. And I was in there and I was talking to Nikki D, and Salt kind of comes where we are, and she's just standing there. And I'm like, oh, there goes Salt, but I don't know Salt. Like, what should I say? You know, she's looking like, not like hello, just looking. So I'm talking to Nikki, and she's standing right there. And so I continue talking to Nikki, and then she just cuts in the conversation to Nikki and goes, "Who's that?" And Nikki goes, "Oh, that's Kenny Parker. That's KRS brother." And she said, "Oh, I thought that was Chris. I wonder why he wasn't speaking to me. Oh," and she just turned around and walked away and walked to the other side of the club. She never said hello, nice to meet you, nothing. She just said, "Oh, you're not KRS? Peace." And she left me standing right there with Nikki D. But she was just like, I guess her attitude was, why would KRS come in the party and not speak to her? I guess they knew each other, but I didn't know her. So I was just like, but she was just standing. She didn't say, Chris, or you look like her. She just went to Nikki. Who's that? Oh, that's not KRS? Bye. That is the only time I ever met Salt. And maybe she was mad that I came in there with 6 dudes. Whatever the case, big up to Salt and Pepper. That is one of my favorite groups ever. I hope y'all like that story. I think it's an epic fail, but who knows? Big up to the Notorious B.I.G. Miss you. I saw Redman in there. Like everybody was just in this pool spot. I can't even remember all the people I used to see in there. Because it was like, it lasted for like a few months. And I think I went there like twice. Um, Let me scroll down a little bit. There's an ill question, Lottie Dottie. How do you think Afrika Bambaataa will go down in hip hop history? Sadly for him, I don't think he will go down in hip hop history. I think, despite all of his contributions, he is officially canceled. Even on the 50th anniversary of hip hop, where everybody got their flowers, everybody, he was not even mentioned at all. So I think he is canceled, and I think in the history of hip hop, in another few years, you're not even gonna know he existed. That's my opinion. I think he's gonna get erased. They might mention Zulu Nation, maybe, but um, I'll tell you a story real quick. I had a friend. This is about 4 years ago, maybe. I had a friend who worked at BET, and they was doing one of their, the beginnings of hip hop, the early stories of hip hop. And she called me and asked me, can I give a quick rundown of who are like the founding fathers of hip hop? And of course, I said the Mount Rushmore. I said Herc. I said Flash. I threw Grand Wizard Theodore in there. And I said, you might not even be able to, and this is, I said, you probably won't even be able to say Africa Bambaataa. I said, maybe just say Zulu Nation and not BAM, and try to see, give him some credit. So she said, okay. She called me back and was like, they won't even accept Zulu Nation. And this is BET doing a documentary on hip hop. This is 4 years ago. She said they will not even accept Zulu Nation. You can't say anything. And that was 4 years ago. So, and based on the 50th, that's a great question. I would say he's done. He does not exist. Um, VHS Hip Hop says in the KRS freestyle at the DC show, he talked about parts of your story. I knew from the book. Dope. Thank you so much for getting the book. Mentioned Prospect Park. Yeah, we lived in there. Super Donut. I don't know if I remember Super Donut. Erasmus High School, of course. Erasmus High School. Have footage posted to the channel. Yeah, I'd like to see that. But yeah, I was supposed to go to Erasmus High School. It's in the book. Um, let's see. Let me scroll down a little bit because I'm falling behind. As soon as I start telling the story, I just fall behind crazy. David Olson says Kenny, was Superhole a real story about Scott LaRock? Chris went off on that song. Yes, I believe so. Um, Scott was definitely a ladies' man, and I wasn't around him like that from what I heard. But I did hear Chris say there's a story in the song Superhole where Chris goes up in Rochester says up in Rochester on DKX. WDKX means DK sex. There was a radio station called DKX in Rochester, and that was one of BDP's early interviews and shows. They went up to Rochester, New York, and needless to say, there was some shenanigans going on there. So that up in Rochester, DKX, that Scott was up there wilding in Rochester, for what I hear. Um, but yeah, funny song. And like I said before, I have on this channel back 3 years ago, 8 things you didn't know about BDP. And one of them being that Miss Melody is singing, Scott LaRock had 'em all. He is super ho. That is Miss Melody singing. Okay, let me. Philly She said 3 a.m. everything went off. Yeah, it was about 3 a.m. MMA said they would also play the national anthem before signing out. Yeah, they used to play the national anthem and you know it was over. You ever dozed off and with the TV on and woke up in the middle of the night, we're just going, it just fog. What did they used to call it? Snow. Oh, Mark Thompson said, yeah, they show the vertical color bar. Sometimes you'd have that. Yep. Brooklyn Geek says, damn, KP, you old if you remember TV coming off. Just kidding. I remember that too. Yeah, yeah, I'm old. I remember TV going off. Let's see. That's funny. Tori D says when Kung Fu featuring David Carradine went off, the station went off. Yeah, that is crazy. Red says, remember TV Guide? Yeah, TV Guide was everything. You used to get it. It used to be right when you checked out at the right when you checked out in the supermarket, they would have National Enquirer or whatever, and TV Guide would be right there in a Jet magazine and a TV Guide. And sometimes you try to flick through the TV Guide to see what's coming on without paying for it. So while you were online, you would try to look in the TV Guide because nobody had a TV Guide subscription, but you would pick up the TV Guide from time to time. I remember that. Rosmel says, didn't PBS show Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Yes. The Electric Company, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, PBS is done. Beyond the Matrix is the OKP. Remember when NYC got cable and they had Channel J? I used to watch Midnight Blue and Ugly George back then as a kid. I remember when New York had cable. We had cable back in the day. Oh, y'all got to get the book, man. I don't want to give it away, but yeah. Oh, okay, Michael from Mortis. KP, just a small correction. PBS is not shutting down. Corporate for Public Broadcasting, which finances a good portion of PBS, is, however. Stations will do their best to get local support. Okay, my bad. PBS is not cutting down. They just cut the funding from the corporation. Yeah, because at the end they would say, this is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You are correct. So now they're gonna try to get donations to keep the station going. Maybe they might have to even get commercials. Thank you for clearing that up. So PBS is not shutting down, but the parent corporation lost its funding. Jack Swagger says, shout out to Soul to Soul, of course. My girl Karen Wheeler. That's my girl right there. Um, yeah, Kenneth Smith, you sound like an old man, but yeah, I hate sounding like that guy, but as far as music in the 80s and 90s, it was an embarrassment of riches. It really was. I grew up in it, so I didn't realize. You didn't realize it was normal, especially coming from the 70s to the 80s, 90s. It was normal. Never considered there would be a time that people would pay people with zero talent. Yeah, I didn't see it. Um, it was a slow bomb, though. We were headed this way for a minute. It's so bad now. Oh, it's so bad. It is so bad. Um, let's see. Patrick Watts says Tom Tom Club, Art of Noise were killing it. Yes. Even Thomas Dolby, She Bonded Me with Science, one of the best videos at the time. Yeah. Science. Dude just screaming science for no reason. Shit was off the hook. Um, I remember Tom Tom Club when I remember I went to a basketball game in 81 to see Pearl Washington play. It was called the Kangaroo Classic. Boys and Girls High School where Pearl played was the Kangaroos. They were playing against Alexander Hamilton. And I went to that game in 81 at Pratt Institute. It was packed. And they had like a little music before the game started, and somebody threw on Genius of Love. It was brand new. And that record came on. What you gonna do when you get it? And the whole crowd went crazy. That record brought the house down. Um, that's back when you didn't know what anybody looked like, black, white. You didn't know. It was a dope record. It comes on, if it's dope, it's dope. Um, and the people, the Tom Tom Club, which is a spinoff of what is the group? They were in a bigger group and they had some hiatus and they left and made the Tom Tom Club and made that record. Oh, I can't remember the group. Anyway, that record came on and blew the roof off of Pratt Institute. Never forgot that. I was like, what record is this? Um, let me scroll down a little bit. Dave also, Kenny, did you have a JVC receiver growing up with a big silver button for the radio station that they lasted forever? We had something. I don't think it was a JVC. We had something. Um, we had a radio. I don't know what it was. Anathema says Heather B is Sway's co-host. Yes, she is. She has the link. She told a story about you and her riding the train in Jersey and seeing him. Yeah, we were on the train one day, the PATH train in New Jersey, me and Heather, and saw Kwame. But I didn't know him, so I didn't for some reason I normally introduce myself to people, especially if they have a song I like, but for some reason I did not introduce myself to Kwame. And that was it. And we used to play the rhythm to death. The rhythm was banging, and only you. Only you. Remember that? We used to play the rhythm and only you to death when I was in college. And I saw him, but I should have told him that, but I just let it pass. Um, Probably should have spoke to him. Brooklyn Geek says crack and hip hop made New York City wild in the 80s. Well, New York was wild in the 70s. So hip hop, I think, was a place that a lot of people came to from the different boroughs to one spot to hear a certain style of music. A certain type of crowd came to a certain place together, and that mix caused for problems, especially like I said with Brooklyn in the mix. Um, and crack, the crack epidemic destroyed New York, man. Destroyed New York. Shorty Blitz, peace, Kenny in the chat said, I went to the tunnel in 96, saw the craziest fight, two dudes with champagne bottles. I know that didn't turn out well. Woo. I've seen somebody get hit with a bottle before. It just cuts your whole, yo, that is not a good look. Let me not say too much before I get flagged. You know, they don't like violence on YouTube. Um, um, Kendall says, KP, I'm very nostalgic too. Maybe sometimes to a floor. I guess you meant to a floor. I feel sometimes I should be more on to the next. Do you ever feel this way, especially with having a sibling that's so much that way? Sometimes, because I'm in the present, but sometimes things will just trigger me and I'll go way back. It doesn't take much for me to get nostalgic. With Chris, I'll drag him into nostalgia. Like sometimes I'll say something, or remember this, or remember that time you said this or something, and I'll kind of take him there, and then we'll be in it. But he's not a person to rest on his laurels. He's always thinking of what's next. Um, he's more in the future. I'm in the present. He's more in the future. But I mean, you are who you are, man. Patrick Y. See, this is how I know you was hood, Patrick Y. I'm gonna expose you right now. KP, did you ever walk around with a box? I had about 3 boxes, but my JVC was my go-to. Hard to walk around with spare batteries and a bag of tapes, playing your box in the last call on the 2 to 5. I'm about to expose you, Patrick. Why? First of all, in New York City in the 80s, you had to be a certain kind of individual to be able to walk around with a box. If you had a radio and you didn't have some kind of clout in the street, someone will take your radio. You were not going far with a radio. So the fact that you had 3 boxes, Patrick Y, and was walking around the Bronx with a radio, what were you up to, Patrick Y? And then let me add to it, playing your box in the last car of the 2 or the 5 train. Y'all from New York do not understand how rugged the New York City subway system was back in the day. It was like riding in a jail car. So if you had a box and the last car on the train was the most dangerous because the driver of the train is in the first car. The conductor is usually probably 2 or 3 cars back, maybe in the middle. But those last cars, nobody was in the last cars. You were on your own. So if you had a box on the train in the back of the 2 train, you was kind of hood, Patrick Y. We might need a little bio on you, Patrick Y. You just exposed yourself. Beyond the Matrix says Brooklyn always rolled in deep. Always. Always. And caused problems. Brooklyn Geek says record business done traumatized my man KP. Yes, it has. I am shell shocked. I have PTSD from being in the record business. Yes. From what my experiences and from what I saw and heard, yes. Dean Izzy says, Kenny, do you remember the Deceptions? I guess you mean the Decepticons? Oh, Decept. Oh, you did spell Decept. It looked like Deceptions. I guess you meant the Decepticons. I heard of them and the Low Lifes. That was a little after my time. I believe Decepticons were kind of bigger in like the 90s. I was like I was grown in the 90s. I was on tour. But yeah, I heard of the Decepticons, but that was a little after my time. I don't recognize this name. Ants on Candy Media. KP, what's up? Um, let's see. Let's see. Um, oh, Canera. Coogee Rap wrote "I Desire" for Salt and Pepper. Check the credits in the back of the album. I thought he wrote "I'll Take Your Man." I didn't know he wrote that as well. That's why it was so hard, man. That makes sense. There was a lot of ghostwriting going on back in the day. I'm not going to do my ghostwriting rants either. Y'all know I have a ghost producer ghostwriting rant, and y'all know I have a record company executive rant, and y'all know I have a change the game changer rant. And I'm not doing any of them, but if y'all force me to, I will. Patrick Wise says, KP, did you hear what you just said? You entered the salt party with 6 dudes, but we were pushing it. Ah, push it. Get it up on this. Get up on this. Yeah, we were pushing it. Salt probably looked and saw 6 dudes that didn't pay. And she probably was like, well, that's KRS, so I'm gonna let him get that off. And then she's like, wait, that's not KRS? Oh, she probably was tight. David also says, Kenny, do you remember the request line by Rock Master Scott and the Dynamic Three? Of course I do. Were they from New York? I'm not sure, but I remember that record was on a lot. I hope they got a check when Missy sampled them for Work It. That record is a platinum single, double platinum album, I believe. And they sampled Rock Master Scott. I hope them guys got a check. Um, Rick says Latrim, Cars That Go Boom. That video was on all the time. Canara says, isn't Allison Williams the first lady of Def Jam, even though she was an R&B singer? Well, yeah. I just saw that Nikki D used to say she's the first lady of Def Jam. I guess she was the first female rapper signed to Def Jam. But I met Allison Williams too. She had a big record in like '89. But I just saw she was down with Russell Simmons and Larry Smith when they did Action. She's the one singing "I Want Action" on that breakbeat Action. That's Allison Williams. Did she pass away recently? Corey Flood says, "Oh no, she didn't." Okay, we're done with Salt. Nah, Salt. I don't know. Don't diss Salt, but she did play me. I can't front. Patrick Wise says, KP, you failed when you came in with 6 dudes. It throws off the male female algorithm. It does. There was a time in New York where they said you could not come in a club without a woman. Only if a guy could not come into a club unless he had a woman with him. And there were guys outside the club seeing girls and saying, can I walk in with you? Like, I'll pay you money to walk in with you. I remember that, especially a club called Envy used to do that. Today, that would be a lawsuit. DJ Green Hornet, what's up? Um, let's see. Tampa Bay said, so sad. Bam was so important. Um, yeah, he was. Um, but if the allegations are true, you reap what you sow. If they're not true, then that's extra sad. Rapsalute says, yeah, people are still shouting out Zulu. Um, I mean, they probably are, but um, I just know from what I heard. I mean, they wouldn't even say Zulu on BET. Dan Marasuti says Bada got kicked out of Zulu Nation. There's a video. Wow, I did not know that. Did not know that. Jeffrey Lawson said, without Bam, you wouldn't have Jazzy J, which leads to LL Cool J. Without Bam, you wouldn't have a lot of things. You wouldn't have Red Alert on Kiss. If y'all recall, Kiss FM gave that slot to Bam. I think Bam did it once, or then he threw it to Jazzy J, and Jazzy J didn't want that slot, so they threw it to Red Alert. Red Alert was the third string DJ in the crew, and he jumped on Kiss FM and made history. I believe he celebrated his 40th year in radio a couple years ago. That's incredible. 40 years on the radio. Um, but yeah, Patrick Wise says Bam erased himself. As far as I know, he never came out and defended himself against the allegations, so he looks guilty. But he is definitely a founding father and a master of records. Yes. I mean, two things can be true at the same time. You could be great, done some great work, and did great work for the community, and be a monster at the same time. Sad. Jeffrey Lawson says you can't erase. They will. I'm calling that. Um, I'm calling that. They are erased. He's already erased. Greg Hunt said they can't erase him. He's too rooted. Go back and look at just look at all of this, the documentaries and 50th anniversaries and all the recaps. Just go look at that and see if you see him. Greg Hunt said Planet Rock will live forever. Yes, that song will. Absolutely. Joey Joe said, yeah, it's sad. Africa basically ruined it for Zulu Nation and its DJs and founding members. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Um, Let me scroll down. I'm gonna jump down a little bit. Benny Doyle, scroll down today. Hold on, y'all. Let me make it a little bit. Thank you, Jack Swagger. He says Tom Tom Club is the Talking Heads spinoff. Yes, they went into Talking Heads and they spun off um and like did a little side project that turned out to be Genius of Love. And I liked Pleasure of Love too. Pleasure of Love was dope too. Dan Marasuti said Tom Tom Club were mates of Bob Marley. I did not know that, but they were. Sly and Robbie did the bass line. Do do doom 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 do do doom 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 doom. That bass line from Genius of Love is Sly and Robbie. I do believe they went out to Jamaica to record, and they shouted out Sly and Robbie on the record. They shouted out Curtis Blow. Who need the beats when the beat just go? Bohannon, Bohannon. They were just shouting out people. James Brown. That record was so dope. So dope. Dre Stack Dollars, what's up? Rosmel says Mariah's Fantasy sampled Tom Tom Club. Yeah, a few people sampled Tom Tom's Club. And they get paid. Yes, D-Nizzy, it was the Talking Heads. I knew because letting the days go by. That's a record right there. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. That's my record. Same as it ever was. Um, yeah, Patrick Wise says Once a Lifetime intro beat was dope. David Byrne was sweating like in hell in his civil rights suit. All of these people were like connected. So I think Art of Noise, Trevor Horn had a lot to do. Art of Noise was connected to Buffalo Girls through Trevor Horn, and it was just everybody knew each other and were working with each other. Um, Vincent Ross says, "Good evening, DJ Kenny Parker. Do you like the bass line in Diamond D Sally's Got a One Track Mind?" Absolutely. That's a crazy bass line. Absolutely. Um, let's see. Verse Pro says Patrick was gangster. Yeah, I'm starting to believe Patrick. Why? I'm really starting to believe that you was really in them streets, man. Um, Beyond the Matrix says, I remember whenever we walked around with a box, we would roll deep. Yeah. You couldn't just walk around with a box. Hell yeah. And Patrick, why you was dolo with a box? Def Rocker says, I think Sean Price was down with the Decepticons. He was either Decepticon. I mean, I think Jerobi was either Decept or Low Life too. I can't remember which one. Jerobi was one of them too from Tribe Called Quest. Big up my brother Jerobi. That's who I need to have on here too. Steel, Ruck, and Rock from Boot Camp Click were Decepticons. Yes. Shout out to Ruck and Rockness Monster. MK Ultra says KP's epic rants. Yeah, I got some rants, man, about the music business. Terrell McMillan says G Rap wrote I Desire and Chick on the Side. Damn. Let's see. Rap Salute says Rockmaster Scott and the Dynamic Three from the Bronx, I think. I don't know much about them, but Ultra says, KP, have we seen the Raekwon Bear Hill video? It's wow. No, I have not seen that yet. I'm just joshing. You are a legend, Kenny Parker. Thank you so much. I appreciate that compliment. I have a question. If you were a producer in today's times, I am a producer in today's times. How would you generate a buzz for yourself? Wow, that's tough. Everything now is social media driven. I mean, everything now I guess would be putting snippets up on TikTok, Instagram, wherever most of the your audience would be. Um, it's putting beats up and tagging beats with certain tags and tagging people in beats, trying to get people to listen to your beats. A lot of people just tag rappers into their videos so you could just maybe click on it and hear a beat and maybe want to rap to it. It's very difficult now. There's so much music, so many beats all over the place. It's really, really hard. Speaking of that, I have my beat sessions. I hope most of you guys have listened to the beats I've dropped so far. I'm just cleaning up one right now. Probably gonna drop it in another day or two. Um, so I hope you guys check that out. But yeah, I think putting out records on social media is the way to go. Everything is social media. What is this, Ultra? Heard the newest Master Killer. Oh, Master Killer album. He shouts you out, KB. Yeah, I've been hearing that, and I still haven't had a chance to check it out. But shout out to Master Killer, man. I love getting shout outs. man, it's just cool, and people acknowledge that you and them are cool. It's a nice feeling. Corey Flood, I'm not sure about this. Since Bambaataa will be forgiven as his past by most will be forgotten, much like Jerry Lee Lewis, Ike Turner, Phil Spector. Those were, first of all, those were different times. And those people didn't go viral. Like we found out about these people and their transgressions years later, years and years later. You can throw Elvis in that mix, quite a few people. We didn't know, people didn't know in real time. You found out years later, and it's still not common knowledge. Um, and I don't know how or why that these people are forgiven. But Bam in hip hop is a lot less forgiving, and I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Um, I think he's canceled. I was at couple of those 50th anniversary things. They would not mention his name. They would not say his name. He's is as important as almost anybody, and he's gone. D Nizzy says Bam lost his civil lawsuit. He didn't show up because he was guilty. It appears that way, although there could be other reasons why he didn't show up. He could have been sick, maybe he didn't have legal representation, or he's guilty. I don't know. What's up, Kenny? Do you think black artists are destroying black music and or the industry? Not the industry, but I don't know if black artists are destroying black music. I think the worst, and I've said this before in the show, the worst images of black people are being pushed to the forefront by the industry. And it appears that the mainstream finds the worst in black people the most watchable for them, or most exciting or marketable for them. So the more ratchet and criminal and disrespectful a black person that you can show, somehow that equates to being more profitable. And so there's black artists making all kinds of music, but they are pushing a certain image. Every female rapper is just twerking all over the place. Like they can't even just walk from point A to point B without stopping and dropping and twerking. I'm like, yo, I'm down with young people having fun. When we were young, we did all kind of outlandish stuff. And I'm definitely not against twerking. I just believe there's a time and place. There's a time and place. And sadly, these days, the worst of us are being pushed in the front. And it's not even a reflection of the whole, but that's what it is. And it's being politicized as well. Def Rocker says, I like wordy rapping her from Tom Tom Club. Yeah. What are words worth? All that. All that. Canary says Trevor Horn did mad joints like Relax from Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Owner of a Lonely Hearts by Yes. Yeah, he was like early sampling little stabs and stuff. He was funky too. Um, because the remix of Buffalo Girls, I guess it is, she's looking like a hobo. That beat was ridiculous. Great producer. Rap Salute says Jerobi, a DCEP. Yeah, I believe him mentioning, I've seen him mention that he was in one of those crews. Yeah. Somebody check that out. Somebody ask Jerobi. I don't even, how do I not have Jerobi's number? Do I have Jerobi's number? I do have Jerobi's number. I should ask him. I'm going to text Jerobi and ask him to be sure. But I do believe, I think he said he was a DSEP. Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that. Somebody I love fact checking on this channel. Um, if I'm wrong, somebody please fact check me. Patrick Wise says it's all in the attitude. 6'2" and dark skin with a little muscle made you think twice. Nah, Patrick Wise, you're not getting off that easy, bro. I've seen plenty of 6'2" dark skinned dudes get bodied in the streets. What were you doing in these streets, Patrick Wise, that you could walk around with a box and ride the back of the 2 train with a box and have no problems? Um, we need to know. Joey Joe says, I thought Jerobi was a part of the Violators. Now, the Violators was Chris Lighty and that crew. Um, Shout out to the Violators. Super mad dope dudes, all cool. They were Red Alerts people. You walked up on Red Alert trying to cause problems, you had to deal with the Violators. They had a lot of fights in Latin quarters too. The Violators was thumping. Rest in peace to Chris Lighty. Then they morphed the Violator crew into a business. Big Bat said Patrick Y was the original Radio Raheem. I think so, man. I think so, Patrick Y. I think so. Didn't Chuck Chill Out sample Talking Heads Once in a Lifetime for Slave to the Rhythm? Yeah, and Jay-Z used it too. And a guy named Casey Flight used it too, I think. Uh, Hype Style. Damn, you said you're an hour late. Tripping. What did I miss so far? A few things. I told a Salt and Pepper epic fail. I'm glad that LL Cool J hosted the MTV Awards. He has a lot to do with these awards lately. And that Busta Rhymes got his Legend Award. Really cool. Big up to Busta Rhymes. That's my brother. Love Busta. Um, I had a chance to hang with Busta at a concert before. It was wild. One day I'll tell that story. That's my dude. And he got flowers while he's still alive, which is wonderful. He's had an incredible career. Big up Bus. Uh, this is funny, David Alston. First time I rode the train in the Bronx, the lights went off. Yeah, sometimes the lights would drop. There's like little power surges where it'll drop and come back on. I was so scared. I'm from down south. What an experience for me. Yeah, man. Yeah, you're not expecting them lights to go off. And were you inside the tunnel? Because if the lights went off and you were in the tunnel, it was pitch black. But they would come right back on, though. Once in a while, there'd be train cars where the lights were just broken and they'd be out. Riding a train like that is scary. I've been on a train car with no lights. You can either get up and go to the next train car with lights, or you can just sit there and just be in the dark. Um, this is gonna be one of my rants. I'm not gonna rant Oreo 1873, but I was shocked when I found out that Melly Mel only wrote the last verse of the message, which I think is the dopest part of the song, but it was still kind of crazy when I found out. See, these are the comments that make me go on my ghostwriter rants, y'all. And my main theme of the ghostwriter rants is everyone talks about who's dope and who's whack because they have ghostwriters, which I think is, I'm not going to say it's whack. I'm going to say I have mixed emotions about a ghostwriter. more negative than positive. I understand, but as a fan, I think it's whack. As a businessman, I understand why you would do it, but as a fan, I think it's whack. But everyone talks about this day and age of ghostwriters like they weren't having ghostwriters back in the day. And I say two of the first foundational records of hip hop are frauds. Sugar Hill Gang Rapper's Delight is one of the greatest crimes in the history of music. And shout out to Master G and Wonder Mike who put their pen game down. But that is a horror story in ghostwriting. And then The Message, which I consider the greatest rap song of all time, which is in the time capsule for the 90s, for the 80s, I believe. No, for the 100-year time capsule. I believe that song, The Message, is in the time capsule to be opened up 1,000 years from now. And they want to know what happened 1,000 years ago. And they look in the time capsule, they're gonna find the song, The Message, in there. That whole song was written and produced by someone else. Look up Duke Booty when you get a chance, and you'll find out about ghostwriting. On top of that, Melly Mel's last verse, the verse that we all love, a child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. He said that rhyme twice. Go look up Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I believe it's Super Rapping. It's a Super Rapping 2. Came out in 1979. He said that whole verse in a record that came out in stores. He said the whole verse. Then it was time to do the message. I believe this story goes that Sylvia Robinson told him, remember that rhyme you said 3 years ago? It would do real well in this particular record. And he said the same rhyme twice. Imagine if you found out you're dope. Imagine if Rakim, you found out that it takes 7 MCs to put them in a line. He said that in another song early on that came out. Still a great verse, but it's a little bit different. So even that song, The Message, even that great verse that Melly Mel did write, the only verse in that whole song that was written by a Furious Five is a rhyme he already said. The music business is bullshit, y'all. Everything is a fraud. There's only a handful of people that really, really did it. And that's why when I talk about the greatest to ever do it, I'm talking about dudes who's really penned their lyrics, could really perform it, really have longevity, really have originality. Not saying that these people weren't dope, but there's a lot of bullshit that goes on behind the scenes, man. And The Message and Rapper's Delight, the foundations of rap music on wax, both of those records are filled with controversy. Y'all go look up The Message and look up a name Duke Booty and find out that story. You'll be shocked. Platter, no DC. Yeah, this is my take. I would say KP. So KP, do you think these times will cause hip hop artists to make more political music, or is hip hop not a vehicle for that anymore? I think hip hop is not a vehicle for that anymore. I think back in the day, the only way we had to express ourselves was through hip hop. The only way we could talk about things that were going on in our lives in the street in America in real time was in a song. Now these kids have multiple platforms that anybody can talk about anything more in real time than a song. Because even a song is real time within months or a year from whenever it comes out. They're talking literally seconds from things happening. So there's a lot of political stuff online. So I think hip hop is no longer a vehicle, in my opinion, for political talk. We're getting down towards crunch time here. And I'm probably not going to do an overtime today. So, Corey Flood, Kenny, regarding Bambaataa, well, let's look at R. Kelly. The people still love Ignition and Step in the Name of Love. People will still love Planet Rock. They'll forget about Bam was accused. I no, I think people, first of all, I've been in clubs where the DJ threw on Ignition and the whole club booed him for playing that song. I've seen that with my own two eyes. People still love Ignition and Step in the Name of Love. I don't think R. Kelly is canceled. I think R. Kelly is more like a disappointment. Like, oh, Kelly, you played yourself. We loved you and you played yourself. I think R. Kelly is a disappointment to people. I think Bam is on a different level. I think he is canceled. That's just my opinion. And I think based on what I've seen, you can't even say his name. Like, matter of fact, I'm gonna get some heat on this channel for saying his name. There's gonna be people in my comment section saying all kind of stupid shit. But I'm gonna comment on things as I see fit. And this is a conversation. I'm not hiding from it. But I think Bam is on a different level of disgust from the audience than R. Kelly, even. My opinion. Oreo 1873. 1873. Thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. It is much, 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 much appreciated. Said, wow. Thanks for the ghostwriting rant, KP. I love to get facts. Yeah, there's more. I can go on for days. Um, and I've had in the past, we've had arguments on this channel where some people will not like an MC because he had a ghostwriter. And I'm saying, okay, that's fine that you don't like somebody for having a ghostwriter. But now that you don't like him, let's go down the list of all of the people who had hits written by somebody else, and we have to say they're whack too. Um, that's just my argument. But yeah, there's been a lot of shit. And I also say this too, as rampant as ghostwriting is, ghost producing is even worse. I don't trust anybody's name in the credits. There's so many people whose name is in the credits on beats that did nothing but stand in the studio and say, yes, I like that. Yes, that sounds good. Gets you in the credits. That's bullshit to me. I'll challenge anybody on that. Uh-oh, I'm starting to rant. I feel myself getting a little, let me calm down. See, y'all, I told y'all gonna get me um a little hype. Brother Ron, peace, Kenny. I was with you the last time you saw Cool Keith. We was on Sedgwick for the 50th. Yes. That day was lit. I remember us watching PE perform. We was on the side of the stage. Yes. And I was going crazy watching Public Enemy. And I did I posted on this channel some footage of the 50th anniversary party that KRS threw in front of in front of Kool Herc's building uh, on Sedgwick Avenue. And I got a little emotional when I was there because for those that don't know, um, we lived as children in the next building over from BAM in 73. BAM created hip hop. Well, they're saying the creation of hip hop has been narrowed down to that day, April 11th, 1973, on Sedgwick. We lived in the next building over. We used to play in front of Bam's house every day. And to see my brother throw a party with thousands of people there and all big name acts and the mayor of New York City, and they had a drone light show and the whole thing. I was so proud of him because we used to play on that street. It was crazy. But yes, we were standing on the side and Ultra was there And we were watching PE. Yes, yes, you are correct. Hype Style says, "Big ups, Duke Booty. Rest in peace for the message." Yes, that song changed everything. Jason Wall says, "Melly Mel didn't write his lyrics on the message. Didn't know that. No, he wrote the last verse. All those other rhymes, and it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under and don't push me. All that was written from somebody else other than a Furious Five. Duke Booty. Melly Mel wrote the last verse, but that was an old verse he already said. If y'all go back and listen to Super Rapping, you're gonna bug out when you hear a child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind to a fast beat. You're gonna be bugging. Not trying to disrespect anybody, um, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not saying these people aren't great. I'm just saying that there's a lot of sleight of hand and cloak and dagger in this game. Method Man underscore ED says, pause, Duke Booty. Yeah, that's a wild name. Patrick Y, Patrick Y says, KP, absolutely right. That was Mel's go-to rhyme. Yeah. Jack Swagger says, Melly Mel gets props for Duke Booty's work. Yeah. Yeah, he does. People talk about that being the greatest lyrics. It is the great. I still say that's the greatest song of all time. But Melly Mel gets huge credit for that song, and he should because he's the only one that wrote. He's the only one for the Furious Five that actually wrote a rhyme on that song. But it's not what you say it is. Gregory Netta says, "Watch your mouth, Kenny." Yeah, I know. I am really saying some stuff today, but this Divine Existence says, I recently told somebody that Johnny Juice ghost scratched for Terminator X on many classic PE records. That revelation left dude heartbroken. Yeah, there's a guy named Johnny Juice who I heard is still very upset that he didn't get the credit that he was supposed to get for all that. Terminator X, rock and roll. First of all, those are some of the dopest scratches. Rebel Without a Pause has some of the dopest scratches in hip hop history to me. And it's Terminator X. But turns out it was not Terminator X, it was Johnny Juice. And Terminator X is a good dude. I never met Johnny Juice. Terminator X is a good brother, not trying to disrespect him in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, everything is not what it seems. And even me, I say all the time, the Boogie Down Productions record, the Kenny Parker show, I only did some of the scratches on that record. KRS did some of the scratches too. We both scratched on that record. So I am half of the scratches on the Kenny Parker show. But still, that being said, yeah, everything is not what it seems, man. It's a lot of trickery. I did not notice Joey Joseph's Melly Mel also used that same verse on the song on Beat Street movie. Wow. Jack Swagger says, what's wild is that Melly Mel never shouts out Duke Booty. He was not part of the Furious Five. And it is wild because I mean, Duke Booty eventually got credit on the record, but and you got to imagine this too. Not only was that one of the biggest records of the year of 1983, but Ice Cube sampled that record for with DOS Effects. Um, Big D's in your mouth is bad for your health. What's the name of that record? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. That was a platinum single with the same beat, and he used some of the rhymes from that record, and that single went platinum. Same beat. And then a young lady a couple years ago sampled the same record Forgot her name. I'm so terrible with names on this channel. A young lady sampled the record a couple years back, and she had a platinum single. Everyone who's ever used that beat has won. That is a great track and a great song. But yeah, if you shout out Duke Booty, that would take away from you. I mean, we're in overtime right now. I'm not gonna stay too long today, y'all. Jack Swagger says R. Kelly isn't canceled. He's postponed. You know who I think is not canceled? Who's gonna come out with a roar? Your man Diddy. I think Diddy's gonna come back crazy. Um, that's my that's my call. Let's see. Patrick Wise says, I think Bam and R. Kelly are on the same track. They allegedly took advantage of blah blah blah. I think Bam is in bigger trouble. For some reason, I can't put my finger on it. I just think Bam is different than R. Kelly. That's what I think. Explicit said Dr. Dre had ghostwriter or writers. Yeah, DOC wrote just about everything he ever said. And I'm not, see, I don't want to get into like people gonna think I'm dissing or whatever, because like I said, Dr. Dre is my favorite producer of all time. I love NWA, but it's crazy that NWA is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as they should be. And out of the four MCs, the four people that rapped in that group, two of them had ghostwriters. Only half the people in that group wrote. Shout out to MC Ren. Shout out to the great Ice Cube. But they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you have Salt and Pepper, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rightfully so. Just inducted the other day. Rightfully so. And now people are saying, well, G-Rap wrote this, and G-Rap wrote that, and Herbie wrote this, and like it's like dudes are getting to the highest heights of recognition and didn't write. You know how dope any one of us on this channel would be if we had a dope ghostwriter? We could be incredible. Patrick Wise says, take a sip, KP rant release. Yeah, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna get off. Um, I'm gonna calm down. I'm taking a sip. This gets me hyped though, because um says Dr. Dre, the king of ghost producing. I don't know if he's the king, but he there's people that's done more, because he has produced a lot of records. And sometimes when you say he ghost produced, he gives people credit. See, to me, if you look in the credits, so let's say, two people did a beat, one person did 70% and the other person did 30%. But the person that did the 30% is the star. But at least he gave credit to the other person, which means that person could get publishing and get a check. Dre always puts other people, the people that he had under him, in the credits. So even though I don't know who did what percentage of what, but at least Dre will give you credit. I'm talking about people who took all the credit for stuff they did not do. Put their name on beats and didn't even bang out one pad in a drum machine, did not lift a lever, did nothing, and get all the credit. That is rampant in hip hop. See, and these kind of things, these kind of comments get me back excited. I was gonna get off. I was gonna get off. And now y'all forced me back into my rant. Dre makes good music. That's all that matters when it comes to him. I mean, I think people that make good music, that's all that matters for us, the consumer. When you go to buy the album, all that really matters is it's banging. That's all that matters. But as a person who has been a beat digger, a beat maker, as they say, and or a producer, and have gotten jerked for music before, I can say that in a business side, it's horrible. It's horrible to hear your music on the radio playing all over the country and you are in the projects at your mother's house broke and somebody else drives past you in a Benz and you did the beat and they are driving in the Benz off the money they made off the song you did. Until you've been in that position, it'll crush you. And I've spoken to so many dudes, man, that's had music stolen from them. So many. Matter of fact, go back and look. If y'all didn't see my Large Professor interview on this channel, go back and check out my Large Professor interview. Big up to the Extra P. Um, Pat a tat tat Pat did that. You, Kenny, what's up? What's up? Haven't been on for a while. Why not? Good to see you are still kicking it on Tuesdays. Word up. We here every Tuesday and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're talking about hip hop. We're talking about basketball. We talk about beats. We talk about whatever. Um, every Tuesday and Friday, we trying to do this. Big up to the Rewind crew who's gonna check this out later on. Um, I'm gonna scroll down to the very bottom and check out the comments, and then I'm gonna jump off. I hate when I miss. I say this every week. Um, Rob Justice says Sky Zoo Ghost Riders, but won't say for who. Yeah, because the pay is good. Somebody will pay you nice money to write for them. Um, I didn't see Patrick Y. I haven't seen your comment. I don't know if you commented on your status in the streets. First thing, if you're on if you're on the channel on Friday, I need to know what your story is. How you were able to walk around with a box in the Bronx in the '80s, and it's not because you're 6'2". Come on, Patrick. Why I need that. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, I said I was going to scroll to the very bottom. All right, I'm at the very bottom. Gregory Nutter says we talk about politics. Not really. Tampa Bay says Large Pro is the most hip hop person ever. He might be. Shout out to Extra P, man. That is my guy forever and ever and ever. Patrick White says, I got you, KP. Yes, we getting to the bottom of this. Oh, man. Hype Style says, I wanted a boombox when I was a kid, never had the money. It's good that you didn't, Hype Style, because the batteries, those radios took like 10 batteries and they would die out in a day. So not only did you have to buy a radio, but you had to have the batteries. Explicit says, Kenny, you said you love psychology. I was a psych major in college. Yes. You are trying to figure out this Patrick Wise situation. I am. I am. I am. Joey Joe says, Patrick Why? I'm surprised you and Kenny never met. We met. We met a couple weeks ago. I did a party at a hotel in New York City, and Patrick Y came through. Um, and we got a chance to kick it. Thank you so much, Patrick Y, for coming through. That's why I'm messing with Patrick Y right now. Patrick Y is a good friend to the channel, and he came through to check me out. And I was very happy to see Patrick Y. And that's why I'm messing with him right now. But we want to get into your street cred. Your street cred was heavy. See, a lot of people talk a lot of things, but sometimes you can tell a person who's really was doing something by certain things that they say. And that's one of them. Patrick White says, I also met KP at his book signing in NYC. I don't remember that for some reason. Oh, yeah. Patrick White says, KP, I gave you the Latin Quarters book. Yes. Okay, yes. I do remember that. Um, Spook Ram says, how well do you think real hip hop heads will accept cover songs of classic rap songs these days? These days is so different. I mean, Cardi B just did one of my favorite Jay-Z records over Imaginary Players. Um, I don't know how well that went over. Not a fan of that, by the way. All right, I'm about to jump off. Let me make this small. Yes, it's the Kenny Parker Show. I'll catch you guys on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, that's it. I'm still looking at comments. We're in overtime right now, but I'm gonna jump off, get me something to eat, and I'll catch you guys. Big up to the Rewind crew. Let me leave it at that. Big up to you guys. You guys are really strong on this channel, and y'all also help with the numbers. Please hit the like button. Please, please, please hit the like button. All right, I'm out of here, y'all. I'll catch y'all in a couple days. Peace.